that's my chair.
You want that chair? Okay.
Yeah. Because I was mic'd this way. Okay.
Great. Well, thanks everyone. We're really excited. It's a great topic, collaboration. It's great for Dina and I because we worked together for so long, but it's so exciting to see that as a topic at an organization like this, and to be able to talk about how it works for brands and agencies and media partners. And in the spirit of collaboration, I'm really excited that what we're going to show you is a lot of numbers and case studies and some information. So take it on that really sharing part of being a collaborator. And what we want to start to talk to you about is a bit of, at Horizon, what we're doing to collaborate with our partners across the board, really with a focus of effectiveness, knowing that that's important for the brands that we work with. How do we just do more and drive more with their media? So let's jump in.
Okay.
Red is forward, right? I mean, green is.
Green. There you go. Oh. Nope, back.
Now, there we go. So a good place to start is just, since we're talking about advertising and looking at effectiveness, just to give you a bit more background of what we're measuring and what we're looking at and things that we think about and talk about overall for our clients. Because it's, there are so many pieces that's important for media and that's important for like the different brands that we manage. So, one of the areas that we like to focus on is looking at if we're on target with the delivery and if we're actually driving lift, whether that's awareness or preference or message association, whatever the certain components of the campaign overall and how it's been developed. And then we're also looking at how we're shifting the mindset across a number of different media partners and different media areas. So we're thinking everything about how we source the media. Is there a difference in effectiveness if we're sourcing it directly or if we're buying that through indirect sources? And how we're able to bring in different data based on the indirect source or the direct source. Does that make a difference overall in terms of effectiveness of the media? And then we're also thinking about creative, and not just the message, we're talking about creative testing, but thinking a bit more also about format as well. And not only thinking about the difference in how rich media might do better than a banner, or a video might do better than rich media, because I think there are assumptions that like inherently some of those units are more effective, but starting to think about the costs associated with those, and how much frequency does it take for a standard banner. So what should the mix of those units be? Because you're not necessarily going to focus 100% in one area, or perhaps in some cases we actually have gotten research that showed us, hey, you know what? Put all your dollars in one type of ad unit, do just video, that's what's going to be most effective. But we're doing a lot of research to think about that. And then thinking about our targets, the people that we're trying to reach, how effectively we're doing that, and viewability. Thinking about how the sites reach our targeted audience, how effectively they do it, and then also the quality of the ad experience. So we're going to show you some examples of that even.
Yep, we'll show you examples. But one thing worth mentioning is that since Mary's teams have been involved in measuring across these different parameters in their campaigns, they're now even using that information for planning purposes. So they're not just taking the data and using it to be actionable during the live campaign, but they're also taking a look at how, for any given brand, what has worked in the past, how different networks work versus the .coms versus the DSPs versus the trading desks, and they're starting to balance their plans according to what's worked historically so that they get started on a stronger foot as their new campaigns launch.
Yep, that's a great point. I think one thing that's really exciting to be able to share with you guys is just some of the data we have that helps put a bit of proof in the assumptions around collaboration and how we work together and what we're measuring overall for a lot of tactics that we're doing. So I think one thing that's pretty great is when we're using different research partners, one thing that we're really excited about is when we're able to actually use that research to optimize when we're in campaign, when we have that opportunity. And I think what's great is to be able to then start to qualify not only the results from optimizing, but also what your approach is to optimizing. And what's really interesting and distinctive that we want to talk about is how when my team as media buyers are working really closely with the media community, the media companies, the vendors, to be able to set out the goals of the campaign and involve them within the optimization process and the difference there. So that's what you're seeing as far as results here as well, is that we've been able to take a look at across campaigns is, what's the difference when we're really involving the media companies in the optimizations overall and getting this more of what we're calling the collaboration optimization.
Yeah, and this is actually recent data. It's going up from previous years, and we're showing that when the media seller is involved in optimization steps, they typically get up to a 33% brand lift, higher brand lift rate. So it's worthwhile for not only the agency and the brand, but of course for the media seller, because they can show their proven results.
It's great, right? If we're asking folks on the sales side to give us 30% more, value or more effectiveness, and here's a way that we've been able to do that within the relationships that we have. The other thing that's really important for Horizon for a number of years now, it seems like, has been a couple years where we got in the conversation early with viewability with MRC, IAB. We were part of the 3M's initiative with the IAB. So we've done a lot of research on viewability. And one of the questions that we really had going into it from the very get-go is trying to quantify the impact of viewability. Does it make sense just from a sheer effectiveness and efficiency as far as dollars? We only want to buy what we're going to get, but then also starting to put some numbers on how much of an impact is there in that, and looking at results overall. So here's some results that we're sharing with you guys, and this is over a number of campaigns, right,
Yep.
Dina?
Yeah, it is over a number of campaigns, and it's important also to know that the data here, not only, it talks about viewability versus above the fold, because it shows the sites that have a high scroll rate, and it also gives the media seller the data that they need to be able to say, well, it may not land above the fold, but we know that these pages are highly viewable, so it incorporates that viewability factor versus just above the fold.
And what's great in having information like this is you can imagine those conversations about viewability are very hot right now. And it's not necessarily an easy thing for a publisher to just turn on. A lot of publishers have been working hard on how they solve this and the type of technology they use for the last couple of years. So, this has been data, it's been helpful, not only have publishers and ad networks work with us on this type of information, but then also so that we all have something together to be able to justify, is it worth the squeeze? What are we getting out of this, and what does it mean for effectiveness overall?
Right.
More great results as far as being able to look at the impact of optimizations. I think we're really excited about this case study that we're sharing with you, not only because we won an award for it, that's always pretty cool, but the notion of not only looking at the lift and the effectiveness, but then also going so far as to put numbers behind that. What does that mean when we've made optimizations, particularly in the sense of brand advertising, right? And starting to put some numbers behind that as far as what more did we deliver in terms of media effectiveness? What did that mean in terms of real dollars for a client? Because a lot of DR clients can talk about revenue and can show that, but how do we start to show some monetary value in terms of raising awareness or raising persuasion overall? And that's really what this campaign, what we're able to show and what we're able to share.
Yes, and the only thing I have to comment on this slide is it's not complicated. It's really about identifying just one or two or maybe three key components in a campaign that are performing well versus those that are not, and making some shifts in your media plan. And you do it in real time, and we were able to take a 23.2% brand lift for International Delights, which we're allowed to tell you who the client was in this particular case. And just by making a couple of shifts against the creative and reallocating some of the media impressions into some of the stronger performing targets, we were able to drive that lift up to 34.4%, where they were actually able to drive it for themselves.
And as you can imagine, it's great to tell the brands that you're working with, great news, here's how we're able to give you even more media than what your dollars set out at the very beginning. And it's a great measure to be able to have like while you're in campaign and to look at that and try to measure those types of things. So, thoughts on, how has this been working for us, and, how do we get there? Because we've had a lot of practice on our side. So a few, thoughts and recommendations. I think the biggest thing, right, is setting expectations right at the get-go with media companies. Always helpful as far as being able to say, here's what our expectations are, here's how you're going to be successful working with us. We're going to be using this type of research in these types of ways, measuring these types of things, and we want your help here. We want you to be looking at these results at the same time, so you have the same data that we're seeing, and you know what the expectations are. So you're able to look at, on your side as a media company, what's driving performance and success. And it's great, right, to be able to empower our media partners in understanding what's going to be successful and setting them up for the best chance of being successful within the campaigns by giving them access to the same types of data that we're looking at. And then being very clear on the expectations. How frequently do we expect to make changes within the campaign? And how frequently do we expect responses from them as far as how they're monitoring the data and how they're reacting to it? So start at the beginning with setting expectations, particularly even before we start to work together as part of the RFP. How are you going to put your plan together that's going to make this work for us? And then, it's a negotiation, but it's insisting on it because it's important. And because as we've shown some information and we've got some more case studies to share with you, it pays out, it makes sense, it pays for itself. And then I think the things that are also interesting, there's an earlier speaker, I think Anna was saying about KPIs. There's so much that you can be measuring, right? But it's not only making a selection and making a prioritization of what the KPIs are, right? But sticking to it from the beginning. Mm-hmm. This is what we're going to measure, and then making it clear that that's what we're in for the long run. There are other things, other bits of information that we get that can be great, but let's all keep to the signals. That's hard sometimes because it can be distracting. There are other shiny things, but keeping on it's an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I just want to share with you because I'm in data every day, and I'm thrilled that this event is talking about KPIs. The reason you want to agree on the KPI up front is because when you start optimizing, if you optimize against one KPI, it will not typically agree with any other KPI. So you're chasing your tail by trying to succeed at everything. It's really important to prioritize because, again, optimizations across different KPIs do not talk to each other. They just don't agree with each other. And that has been my challenge working with my team and agencies and brands over the past 5 years. Okay, let's show you what's going on, some real stuff. Okay, these are real life examples. They've been blinded. This example is a campaign. It was a campaign for a TV network, and the client's goal was to build awareness for, I believe it was a show, and the collaborative partner was a major ad network. They had a huge investment in this particular campaign, tons of impressions, probably 50% more impressions than any other site on the campaign. And so we were focusing on what their performance was because they had so much invested. We decided, since it was a 3-month campaign, we would optimize at the mid-campaign point. So it's also important to know you don't have to go in and optimize weekly. It's really detrimental if you over-optimize. It's more about picking a point in time. And we say for a 3-month campaign, pick that midpoint. But keep your eye on the data and see what's performing. And the KPI was brand lift. So what we did at the mid-campaign point was met with the agency, Horizon, and we identified in the creative performance tab, and these are visuals right out of the interface, so it's super easy. And we identified 2 key creatives that were really generating the strongest brand lift. And by looking at those creatives and the level of impressions that were being served against them versus the other creatives that were that were indicating not generating brand lift, we recommended to the media seller that they shift some impressions into these overperforming creatives. By doing so, the overall campaign brand lift went from 1.3% up to 18.6% overall. So by the end of the campaign, it jumped up to 18.6%. And the bottom lifetime performance tab shows just at that point of optimization how that green brand lift line actually does show the advertiser the impact of that small optimization on this particular campaign. In this campaign, we noticed that there was a direct correlation with optimization steps in the frequency performance tab. And we identified that the campaign, based upon the nature of the assets and the placements and the media sellers' inventory, that 5 to 9 exposures was really the maximum and the optimal frequency for the overall campaign. So again, at mid-campaign point, and this was actually for just a .com, not just a .com, but a .com, and they had a lot invested in the relationship because they were trying to gain more business from the agency. So they partnered with us, and the intent was to drive purchase for the product. It was a beverage product. And we by just making sure that the frequency of the delivery of the ads was around that 5 to 9 threshold, it wasn't running under, and it wasn't getting too much reach. Maybe it was 1 to 2 at the time, and there was too much reach and not enough of the ads hitting the audience. Or on the reverse side, it could have been that they were just hitting people way too many times, 10 plus times. So 5 to 9 was the sweet spot, and by optimizing, they were able to bump their brand lift up from 46, I think that says, % up to 50-something%. And in this screen, similar situation. I'm going to move quickly through this because the last screen is the most important. Again, an alcoholic beverage campaign. We identified the point of optimization, and by just looking at the viewability data in this instance, we found 160 by 600 was really performing well in the viewable mode. So they maximized the viewability of that ad, and then their brand lift catapulted up once that was done. So we've talked a lot about brand lift. I want to show you also what we're doing with Horizon Media in terms of on-target performance and brand lift. So we tag their campaigns to track whether they are actually hitting the desired audience. And the tag also includes the brand lift component. So the single tag measures 2 different purposes. And over the course of 3 quarters, by getting the publishers involved in optimizing their on-target performance, it increased from, and you can see the data there, for the first line, the major portal went from hitting the target 58% to 64%. To the end of the campaign, they were up to 66%. So these are actually really good numbers depending upon the category. This exceeds the Nielsen norm. In the last chart, this is a cool bubble chart, but it shows, this is how we're tracking results for our advertisers. It shows the investment in the size of the bubble. It shows the investment, for example, we'll look at the green bubble. There was a network news site on the plan, and they were skimming the brand lift. They were skimming the brand lift line, which up here is good brand lift, and over here is good on target. So the goal is to get in this top right-hand quadrant to know that you're not only generating brand lift, but you're hitting your target. So primarily we recommend get to your target. Brand advertisers are asking for to reach a certain target for a reason. Their data probably tells them that that's where most of their sales are coming from. So get yourself on target, and then let's drive brand lift once we've reached your target. And over the course of optimizations, this network news channel site was able to get their on-target percentage much, much stronger. They're landing right up here where they need to be. And in the process of doing that, they were able to also optimize and generate additional brand lift. And you can see that, for example, this is a major portal. There's a lot of money being spent here in this major portal. And not only are they not getting brand lift, but they're not even hitting the target. So this is a case where we would work with this portal to at least accomplish the on-target rate by the end of the campaign. Any questions? 15 seconds. That's a question.
15 seconds. And we do have a question. We'd love to take one before we we have for the day. I'm curious, are you guys talking about optimizing for brand lift in real time? Because I don't
Yes.
think that seems so interesting.
Yes.
How are you able to do that? Because typically brand lift studies, track over
Yeah.
a large period of time.
It's a new industry today, and it has been over the past 6 years with the birth of Vizoo, which is a tool that revolutionized the industry. And Vizoo is a survey that is served in real time, and it gathers feedback from audiences in real time, and it interprets the results in the UI, which it then makes the data actionable in real time. Nielsen acquired Vizoo about 2 years ago and has now become part of their suite of digital products. So we are talking real time.
Well, that's fascinating. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. And that concludes our programming for day 2. Before